The military transport ship shook as it entered the atmosphere of Vexur 7. Inside the cargo bay, 43 cadets sat strapped into their drop pods. Most of them looked sick with fear. A few were praying to gods that Danny Cole had never heard of. Danny sat in his pod near the back, reading through the environmental briefing on his datapad. He scrolled past warnings about toxic plants, aggressive predators, and electrical storms that could fry standard equipment. The temperature swings looked rough. 60 degrees during the day, dropping to near freezing at night. The gravity was slightly higher than Earth's standard dot. He shrugged and kept reading. Across from him, a cadet named Zelther was shaking so hard that his chitinous plates made a clicking sound. Zelther was a Veluxi, an insectoid species with 4 arms and compound eyes. His homeworld had controlled weather and no natural predators. The idea of being dropped onto a wild planet terrified him. "This is death," Zelther said, his voice thin and high. "They are sending us to die." "It is a Class 3 Deathworld," said Mira, a Thelian cadet with feathered arms and sharp golden eyes. She sat with her arms crossed, trying to look calm, but Danny could see her talons digging into her seat. The failure rate for previous classes was 40%. 40% did not make it back. 40% failed, Danny said without looking up. That does not mean they died. Most of them probably just called for early extraction. Myra turned her head sharply toward him. "You are the human, Danny Cole. Nice to meet you. I have heard stories about your species. They say you come from a world even worse than this one." Danny thought about that for a moment. He remembered summers in Montana, hiking through bear country with his uncle. He remembered the floods that hit his hometown every spring. He remembered tornado drills in school and the time a mountain lion walked through his backyard. "Earth is pretty rough, yeah," he said. "But this place looks okay. Reminds me of camping." Zelther made a sound like choking. "Camping? You would camp here?" Before Danny could answer, the speakers crackled to life. A deep voice filled the cargo bay. It belonged to Commandant Broxus, a 4-armed Corvani who ran the survival training program at the Galactic Military Academy. "Cadets, you are about to begin your final examination. Vexur 7 has been classified as a Class 3 Deathworld due to its hostile wildlife, unstable weather patterns, and toxic flora. You will be dropped in random locations across the southern jungle zone. Your mission is simple. Survive for 10 standard cycles. You have been given a basic survival kit, a locator beacon for emergency extraction, and nothing else. Use the beacon and you fail. Die, and you obviously fail. Any questions?" Danny raised his hand. Broxus sighed through his communicator. "Yes, Cadet Cole. Can we bring fishing line? I saw some rivers on the scan. Looks like good water." There was a long pause. Somewhere in the cargo bay, a cadet laughed nervously. "Fishing line is not part of the standard kit," Broxus said slowly. "That is fine. I can make some." "Just wondering." Broxus did not respond. The speakers clicked off. Myra stared at Danny like he had lost his mind. "You are either very brave or very stupid." "Probably both," Danny said cheerfully. The ship shuddered again as it reached drop altitude. Red lights flashed along the ceiling. One by one, the drop pods began launching through the floor, sending cadets screaming down toward the jungle below. Zelther grabbed the sides of his pod, his compound eyes wide with terror. "I do not want to die on an alien world." "You will not die," Danny said. "Just stay calm, find water, and do not eat anything that glows." "Basic stuff." Before Zelther could respond, his pod launched. Danny watched him disappear through the floor with a shriek. Myra was next. She gave Danny one last look, something between suspicion and curiosity, and then she was gone. Danny waited for his turn. When his pod finally dropped, he felt the familiar rush of freefall. The pod's thrusters kicked in near the ground, slowing his descent. He hit the jungle floor with a solid thump, and the pod doors blew open. Hot, wet air flooded in. It smelled like rotting plants and something musky, like a predator had marked its territory nearby. The trees were massive, with trunks wider than houses and branches that blocked most of the sunlight. Strange insects buzzed around his head. Something with too many legs skittered away through the underbrush. Danny climbed out of his pod and stretched, his arms above his head. His back popped twice. "Not bad," he said to himself. "Nice weather." He checked his survival kit. A knife, a small fire starter, a water purification tablet, a thin emergency blanket, and a ration bar that looked like compressed cardboard. Standard garbage kit. He had worked with worse dot in the distance. Something roared. It was deep and loud, the kind of sound that vibrated through your chest. Birds exploded out of the trees in every direction. The roar came again, closer this time. Danny listened carefully. The creature was big, probably territorial, and it was moving away from him. Good. He did not want to fight anything on an empty stomach. He looked around, trying to get his bearings. He could hear water somewhere to the east. A river or a stream. That was the first priority. Find water, then find the others. Then build a camp. Simple dot, he started walking. The jungle was dense but not impossible. Danny moved carefully, watching where he stepped and keeping his eyes open for danger. He spotted a few toxic plants from the briefing and avoided them. He saw tracks in the mud from something heavy and clawed. He heard creatures calling to each other in the canopy above. After 20 minutes, he found the river. It was wide and fast, with clear water running over smooth stones. Perfect dot. He also found Zelther, sitting on a rock by the water's edge, hugging his knees and rocking back and forth. "Hey," Danny said. "You made it." Zelther looked up with wild eyes. "Something chased me. Something big. I ran and I fell in the water and I thought I was going to die. And then I found this rock and I have been sitting here because I do not know what else to do." Danny nodded calmly. "Okay, well, you are alive. That is a good start. Have you seen anyone else?" "No, I am alone." "We are alone. We are going to die here." Danny sat down next to him on the rock. "We are not going to die. We are going to find the others, build a shelter, make a fire, and wait out the 10 cycles. Then we go home and graduate. Easy." Zelther stared at him. "How are you so calm?" Danny thought about it for a moment. "I guess I have just done this before. Different planets, same idea. You learn to stay calm, or you panic and make mistakes. Panic gets you killed." Something roared again in the distance. Zelther flinched. Danny just looked toward the sound and listened. "We should find the others," he said. "And we should probably find higher ground before dark. Come on." He stood up and offered Zelther a hand. After a long moment, the Veluxi took it. They started walking together into the jungle, and Danny could not help but smile. 10 days in the wilderness with good water and interesting wildlife. Back home, people paid money for trips like this. Basically, a vacation. By the time the sun started to set, Danny had gathered a group of 5. Besides himself and Zelther, he had found Myra hiding in a hollow tree, a silent amphibious cadet named Wren, and a small furry creature called Tik, who turned out to be a highly intelligent species from a desert world. None of them looked good. Mira had scratches on her arms from running through thorns. Wren's blue skin was already starting to dry out in the humid air. Tik had not stopped shaking since Danny found him tangled in a vine. Danny looked at the group and then looked at the sky. They had maybe an hour of light left. "We need shelter," he said. "And fire." "Follow me." Myra stepped forward. "Why should we follow you?" You are the youngest here. I have 3 years of combat training. Good for you. Can you build a shelter? Mira opened her beak to respond, then closed it. I did not think so. Come on. Danny led them to a spot he had noticed earlier. A small clearing near the river with a rocky overhang on one side. It was not perfect, but it would block wind and rain. More importantly, the rocks would hold heat from a fire. He got to work immediately. Using his knife and some fallen branches, he started building a lean-to shelter against the rock face. He moved fast and with purpose, like he had done this 1,000 times before. The aliens watched him in confusion. What is he doing? Tick whispered. Building something, Zelther said. I think. Within 30 minutes, Danny had constructed a basic shelter big enough for all 5 of them. It was not pretty, but it was solid. He had woven branches together and layered them with large leaves to keep out rain. The floor was covered with soft ferns to keep them off the cold ground. Get inside, Danny said. I need to make fire. Fire? Ren asked in his quiet, bubbling voice. You can create fire. Without technology? Sure, it is not hard. Danny gathered dry bark, dead leaves, and a few sticks. He used his fire starter to create sparks and carefully nursed them into a small flame. Within minutes, he had a proper campfire burning in front of the shelter. The aliens stared at the flames like they were watching magic. How do you know all of this? Myra asked. Her voice had lost some of its sharp edge. Danny shrugged. Learned it when I was a kid. Most humans do. We have these programs where children go into the wilderness and learn to survive. Build fires, find food, navigate without technology. It is pretty normal back home. Zelther made his choking sound again. You send your children into the wilderness? On purpose? Yeah, it is fun. Builds character. Your species is insane. Maybe, but we are also really good at not dying. The fire crackled and popped. The warmth spread through the small clearing, pushing back the chill of the approaching night. Danny added more wood and arranged some stones around the flames to reflect heat into the shelter. Stay close to the fire, he said. It will keep predators away. Most animals are scared of flames. Most? Tick squeaked. Most. Do not worry. I will keep watch. Night fell quickly on Vexur 7. The jungle came alive with sounds. Creatures howled and screamed in the darkness. Things moved through the underbrush, just beyond the firelight. Eyes reflected orange in the shadows, watching them. The alien cadets huddled together in the shelter, too scared to sleep. Every sound made them jump. Every movement in the darkness made them hold their breath. Danny sat by the fire, calm and still-dawed. Around midnight, the predators came closer. Danny heard them circling the camp, sniffing the air, testing the boundaries. He counted at least 4 separate creatures moving in the darkness. Zelther whimpered. They are going to eat us. Danny stood up slowly. He picked up a fist-sized rock and waited. One of the predators stepped into the edge of the firelight. It was big, about the size of a wolf, but with 6 legs and a head full of teeth. Its eyes glowed red as it stared at Danny. Danny stared back. Then he threw the rock. It hit the ground right in front of the creature with a sharp crack. At the same time, Danny shouted and waved his arms, making himself look as big as possible. The predator flinched. It took a step back. Danny picked up another rock and threw it harder. This one hit the creature on the shoulder. It yelped and scrambled away into the darkness. The other predators followed, their footsteps fading into the jungle. Danny sat back down by the fire like nothing had happened. They will not come back tonight, he said. Predators do not like prey that fights back. It is not worth the risk. Myra stared at him from the shelter. You just scared off a pack of apex predators with rocks. They were not apex. Apex predators do not hunt in packs. These were mid-tier scavengers at best. Probably just curious. Curious. Yeah, they had never seen creatures like us before. They were testing us to see if we were easy food. We are not, so they left. Ren shook his head slowly. How do you know these things? Earth has predators too. Lots of them. You learn to read their body language. Most animals do not actually want to fight. Fighting means getting hurt. Getting hurt means dying. So they bluff and test and run away if you seem dangerous enough. The aliens exchanged looks. They were starting to understand something. Humans did not come from a safe world. They did not grow up in controlled environments with filtered air and perfect temperatures. They grew up on a planet that tried to kill them every day, and they had gotten very good at surviving. The rest of the night passed without incident. The predators stayed away. The fire burned low but never went out. Danny added wood every few hours and watched the jungle with patient eyes dot by morning. The alien cadets finally fell asleep from pure exhaustion. Danny let them rest. He checked the camp perimeter, refilled their water supply from the river, and found some fruit that matched the safe items in the briefing. When Myra woke up, she found breakfast waiting for her. You did not sleep, she said. I took a nap. Couple hours. That is enough. Enough? We were awake all night in terror, and you took a nap? Danny handed her a piece of fruit. Fear uses a lot of energy. You should eat. We have 9 more days. Myra took the fruit and looked at it for a long moment. Then she looked at Danny. I was wrong about you, she said quietly. I thought you were foolish. But you know exactly what you are doing. Danny smiled. I grew up camping in bear country. This place is scary, sure. But scary is not the same as impossible. We just have to stay smart and stay calm. We can do this. Myra nodded slowly. For the first time since the drop, she looked like she believed they might actually survive. And somewhere in the jungle, the sun rose over Vexur 7, and Danny Cole started planning their second day in paradise. On the third day, the sky turned green. Danny noticed it first. He was checking the fishing traps he had built in the river when he saw the clouds rolling in from the west. They were thick and heavy and colored like old bruises. Lightning flickered inside them, bright and constant. That is not good, he said. He ran back to camp where the others were resting. Zelther was practicing fire, starting with limited success. Mira was sharpening a stick into a spear. Ren sat in the shade, keeping his skin damp with river water. Teak was sleeping in a ball of fur. Storm coming, Danny said. Big one. We need to move now. Myra looked up at the sky. Her feathers puffed out in alarm. Those clouds. I have never seen anything like that. Electrical storm. The briefing mentioned them. They can last for hours, and the lightning can kill you instantly. We need better cover than this. Where? Zelther asked, his voice rising in panic. There is nowhere to go. There is a cave system about 2 kilometers north. I spotted it yesterday when I was scouting. If we move fast, we can make it. Nobody argued. They packed up their supplies and followed Danny into the jungle. The storm moved faster than expected. Within 20 minutes, the wind picked up and the temperature dropped sharply. The first lightning bolt struck a tree only 100 meters away. The explosion of sound and splinters sent the aliens screaming. Keep moving, Danny shouted over the wind. Do not stop. Rain started falling. It was not normal rain. It came down in sheets so thick that Danny could barely see 5 meters ahead. The ground turned to mud under their feet. Tick slipped and fell, and Danny had to carry the small creature on his back. Ren was struggling the worst. The cold rain was shocking his system, and his movements were getting slow and clumsy. Danny grabbed his arm and pulled him forward. Almost there. Just a little further. Lightning struck again, closer this time. The flash was blinding. For a moment, Danny could not hear anything except ringing in his ears. Then he saw the cave entrance. "There," he yelled. "Go, go, go." They scrambled up a rocky slope and dove into the darkness of the cave. The entrance was narrow but opened into a larger chamber beyond. They collapsed on the dry stone floor, gasping for breath. Outside, the storm raged. Lightning struck the ground again and again. Thunder shook the walls. The sound was overwhelming, like being inside a drum. Danny counted heads. Everyone was here. Everyone was alive. "Is everyone okay?" he asked. "No," Zelther said weakly. "I'm very much not okay. But you are alive. That counts." The cave was dark, except for the occasional flash of lightning from outside. Danny found some dry wood near the entrance and managed to start a small fire. The light revealed walls covered in strange glowing fungi, soft blue and green lights that pulsed slowly in the darkness. Ren sat up and looked at the fungi. "Those are bioluminescent. My people have studied similar species. They are usually mildly toxic. So do not eat them," Danny said. "Got it." They settled into the cave and waited for the storm to pass. The fire provided warmth and light, and slowly the terror began to fade into exhaustion. "How long will this last?" Myra asked. "Hours, probably. Maybe until morning. We should rest while we can." Tick crawled out of Danny's pack and shook water from his fur. "I hate this planet. I hate it so much." "It is not so bad," Danny said. "At least the cave is dry. How can you be so calm?" Tick demanded. "We almost died. Again." Danny thought about how to answer. He looked at the faces around the fire. Zelther, terrified, but still trying. Mira, tough but clearly shaken. Ren, exhausted and cold. Tick, small and angry and scared. "Let me tell you about Earth," Danny said. The aliens looked at him. "My planet has storms like this too. We call some of them hurricanes. They are so big you can see them from space. Wind speeds of over 200 kilometers per hour. They destroy entire cities, kill thousands of people." Zelther's compound eyes went wide. "Why do you still live there?" "Because that is home. We adapted. We build stronger buildings. We develop warning systems. We evacuate when we need to. And sometimes we just ride it out. What else?" Myra asked quietly. "Earthquakes. The ground shakes and splits open. Buildings collapse. Mountains fall down. My grandmother survived 3 major earthquakes in her lifetime." "3? Yeah. She said you get used to it." Danny added more wood to the fire. "We have volcanoes too. Mountains that explode and cover everything in fire and ash. Tsunamis, giant waves that swallow coastlines. Tornadoes, spinning columns of wind that tear through towns like paper. Floods, droughts, wildfires. And that is just the weather." Ren shook his head slowly. "Your planet sounds like a Class 3 Deathworld." "Earth is actually classified as a Class 12 Deathworld," Danny said casually. "One of the highest ratings in the galaxy." "Silence. You are joking," Myra said. "I am not. Look it up when we get back. Earth has extreme temperature ranges, high gravity, an atmosphere with a corrosive gas called oxygen, liquid water that falls from the sky, and more species of predator than most planets have species total. The Galactic survey team that first visited Earth recommended quarantine." "But you seem so normal," Tick said. Danny laughed. "We are normal. For Earth, everything I am doing here, every skill I am using, I learned because Earth required it. Humans have been surviving hostile environments for hundreds of thousands of years. This is just what we do." The storm continued outside, but it felt less frightening now. The aliens looked at Danny with new eyes. He was not crazy. He was not stupid. He was a product of a world that made this one look gentle by comparison. My town flooded every spring, Danny continued. When I was 10, the water came up to our second floor. My dad put me in a boat and we paddled to the shelter. I thought it was an adventure. I did not realize until years later that we could have died. That is horrifying, Zelther said. That is Tuesday. You adapt or you die. Humans adapted. Myra looked into the fire. Is that why your species is so aggressive? Because your world made you that way? Aggressive is not the right word. We are determined. We do not give up easily. When something tries to kill us, we figure out how to survive it. When we survive, we get stronger. It has been that way since the beginning. The storm began to weaken around midnight. The lightning moved east, and the thunder faded to distant rumbles. By morning, the sky was clear, and Blue Dot Danny led the group out of the cave and back toward their original camp. The jungle was battered, but recovering. Trees had fallen. The river had risen, but life was already returning to normal. 7 more days, Danny said. We are almost halfway there. Zelther looked at him. Do you really think we can make it? Danny smiled. I know we can. You have already survived the worst part. Everything else is just patience. And for the first time, the aliens actually believed him. By day 6, the food was running low. The ration bars were gone. The fruit Danny had found was becoming harder to locate as they stripped the nearby trees. The fish traps worked, but the small catches were not enough to feed 5 hungry cadets. Danny stood at the edge of camp and looked into the jungle. He had been watching the game trails for days, noting which animals passed through and when. There was a large herbivore that came to the river every morning. It was about the size of a cow, with thick hide and curved horns. Good meat, if they could catch it. I am going hunting, Danny announced. The others looked up from their various tasks. Hunting? Teak asked nervously. You mean killing something? That is generally how hunting works, yeah. I will go with you, Myra said. Standing up, Danny raised an eyebrow. You sure? It will be dangerous. I know. That is why I want to go. I have been useless this whole time. You have done everything while we just sat around being scared. I want to help. Danny studied her for a moment. There was something in her golden eyes that he recognized. Pride, determination, the need to prove herself. Okay, he said. Grab your spear. Stay quiet and follow my lead. They left camp and moved into the jungle. Danny walked slowly and carefully, his eyes scanning the ground for tracks. Mira followed a few steps behind, trying to match his silence. How do you move so quietly? She whispered. Practice. Watch where you step. Avoid dry leaves and sticks. Put your weight down slowly. They found the game trail within 20 minutes. Fresh tracks marked the mud, deep impressions from heavy hooves. Danny knelt down and examined them. Recent. Maybe an hour old. The herd is moving toward the river. How can you tell which direction they went? See how the mud is pushed up at the back of the track. That tells you which way the foot was moving. Basic tracking. Myra shook her head in amazement. They really do teach human children everything. They followed the trail for another kilometer. Danny moved like a ghost, barely making a sound. Myra tried her best, but her talons kept clicking against rocks and roots. Danny did not complain. He just adjusted their approach, keeping downwind and using the natural sounds of the jungle as cover. Finally, they spotted the herd. There were 6 of the large herbivores grazing in a small clearing. They had tough, leathery skin and small eyes that watched the jungle nervously. The biggest one, probably the male, had horns as long as Danny's arm. That one, Danny whispered, pointing to a smaller animal at the edge of the group. Younger, less meat, but easier to take down and carry back. How do we do this? I am going to circle around and get ahead of it. When I give the signal, you make noise and drive it toward me. It will run straight into my spear." Myra nodded. Her hands were shaking slightly, but her jaw was set. Danny disappeared into the undergrowth. Mira waited, counting silently in her head. After what felt like forever, she heard a sharp whistle from the other side of the clearing. The signal. She stood up and shouted, waving her arms and beating her spear against a tree. The herbivores panicked. They scattered in every direction, crashing through the jungle in blind terror. The young one ran exactly where Danny predicted. It burst through the bushes and found Danny waiting with his spear braced against the ground. The impact was quick and clean. The animal went down without suffering. Danny knelt beside it and said something quietly that Mira could not hear. A human custom, she guessed. Respect for the kill. "Help me with this," Danny said. "We need to get it back to camp before the blood attracts predators." They worked together to prepare the animal for transport. Danny showed Mira how to tie the legs and create a carrying pole from a fallen branch. It was heavy, but between the two of them, they could manage. They were halfway back to camp when Danny stopped. "What is wrong?" Mira asked. "Something is following us." She looked around but saw nothing. "Are you sure?" "I heard it. Stay close." They kept moving, faster now. Danny's eyes never stopped scanning the jungle. His body was tense, ready to react. The attack came from nowhere. A massive shape exploded out of the undergrowth, all teeth and claws and fury. It was twice the size of the predators from the first night, a true apex hunter with armored scales and 6 powerful legs. Its roar shook the trees. Danny shoved Mira aside and stepped in front of her. "Run," he said. "Danny, no. Run. Get to camp. I will hold it off." The creature lunged. Danny dodged to the side and slashed with his knife, opening a shallow cut on its flank. The predator screamed in rage and spun around for another attack. Danny did not run. He stood his ground and made himself look as big as possible, shouting and waving his arms. The knife glinted in his hand, wet with blood. "Come on," he yelled at the creature. "Come on, you ugly thing. I have fought worse than you." The predator hesitated. Something was wrong. Prey was supposed to run. Prey was supposed to be scared. This small creature was not scared. It was challenging him. Danny picked up a rock and threw it hard. It bounced off the predator's snout. The creature flinched back, confused and angry. "Yeah, that is right," Danny shouted. "I am not worth the trouble. Go find something easier." For a long moment, nothing happened. The predator stared at Danny. Danny stared back. Neither moved. Then the creature turned and disappeared into the jungle. Danny let out a breath. He did not know he was holding. His hands were shaking now that the danger had passed. His heart was pounding so hard, he could feel it in his teeth. Myra appeared at his side. "Danny, are you okay?" "Fine. I am fine." He looked at her. "Why did you not run?" "I could not leave you. I told you to run." "I know. But you would not leave me, would you? If our positions were reversed?" Danny opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. She was right. "No," he admitted. "I would not." They stood there for a moment, catching their breath. The jungle was quiet again, like nothing had happened. "Thank you," Myra said softly, "for protecting me. That is what teammates do. On my world, we do not have that concept. Everyone looks out for themselves. The strong survive, the weak do not." Danny shook his head. "That sounds lonely." "It is." I did not realize how lonely until now. They retrieved their kill and continued back to camp. When they arrived, the others rushed to meet them, full of questions about the hunt and the blood on Danny's knife. Later that night, as they cooked the meat over the fire, Myra told the others what had happened. She described Danny facing down the apex predator with nothing but a knife and pure stubbornness. "He fights like he has nothing to fear," she said. "But he protects others like he has everything to lose. I do not understand humans, but I think I am starting to respect them." Danny just shrugged and handed her a piece of cooked meat. "You did good out there." The drive was perfect. Myra took the food and smiled, a rare expression for her species. "Maybe next time I will be the one saving you." "I would like that," Danny said. Teammates, right? Teammates. And in that moment, on a hostile world millions of light years from home, something like friendship began to form between a human and an alien who had once thought him insane. 4 more days to go. Day 10. Extraction Day. Danny woke before dawn and checked on the others. Zalthar was still sleeping, his chitinous body curled into a protective ball. Mira sat by the dying fire, sharpening her spear out of habit. Ren floated in a shallow pool nearby, keeping his skin moist. Tick was buried in a pile of leaves, only his nose visible. They had made it. Against all odds, they had survived. "Everyone up," Danny said. "It is time to go home." The extraction point was 12 kilometers south, at the edge of a massive clearing where the rescue shuttles could land. They had to reach it by midday, or wait another full cycle for pickup. They packed their supplies and started walking. The mood was light. Zalthar was actually humming, a strange clicking sound that passed for music among his people. Even Mira seemed relaxed, her feathers smooth and calm. "I cannot believe we made it," Tick said from his perch on Danny's shoulder. "I really thought we were going to die on day 1. Day 2 for me," Ren admitted. "After the predators came." "Day 3, Zalthar added. "That storm was the worst thing I have ever experienced." Myra glanced at Danny. "What about you? When did you think we might not make it?" Danny thought about it. "Honestly, never. I knew we would be fine." "Liar. No, really. This planet is dangerous, sure. But we had water, food sources, shelter options, and most importantly, we had each other. Survival is not about being the strongest or the toughest. It is about being smart and working together. We did that." They walked for hours through the jungle, following the route Danny had mapped out days ago. The terrain was familiar now. They knew which plants to avoid, which animals to watch for, which paths were safe. The jungle that had terrified them on day 1 now felt almost manageable. Almost. They heard the extraction point before they saw it roaring, crashing, the sounds of battle. Danny held up his hand and the group stopped. He crept forward and looked through the bushes at the clearing ahead. What he saw made his stomach drop. The clearing was overrun with megafauna. A herd of massive creatures, each one bigger than a shuttle, had claimed the space as their territory. They were fighting each other, bellowing and charging, their huge bodies shaking the ground with every step. And on the far side of the clearing, pinned against the tree line, were at least 20 other cadet groups. Survivors from different drop zones, all trapped with nowhere to go. A shuttle hovered overhead, unable to land. Its speakers crackled with Commandant Broxus's voice. "All cadets, we cannot achieve landing until the zone is clear. Repeat, we cannot land. You must find a way to clear the extraction point." Danny looked at his team. They looked back at him. "Well," he said, "this is a problem." "We cannot fight those things," Zalthar said, his voice rising. "They are the size of buildings. We do not need to fight them. We need to move them." "How?" Danny studied the clearing. The megafauna were territorial, but not predatory. They were fighting over mating rights or grazing space. They did not care about the tiny creatures at the edge of the clearing. They just wanted to establish dominance. "Fire," Danny said. "We need a lot of fire." He ran to the edge of the clearing where the other cadets were huddled. They looked at him with desperate, hopeful eyes. "Everyone listen to me. My name is Danny Cole. I need every cadet who can make fire to start building torches right now. I need others to gather dry brush and pile it in a line along the north side of the clearing. We are going to create a wall of smoke and flames. The megafauna will move away from it. When they do, the shuttle can land on the south side." A Corvani cadet stepped forward. "Why should we listen to you?" "Because I have kept my team alive for 10 days, and I know what I am doing. You can argue with me, or you can help me, but make a choice fast because we do not have much time." The Corvani looked at Danny for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Tell us what to do." Within minutes, Danny had organized the survivors into teams. Some gathered fuel. Others built torches. Mira led a group to create noisemakers from hollow reeds and stones. Zelther, despite his fear, helped coordinate the smaller species who could move quickly through the underbrush. When everything was ready, Danny gave the signal. The north side of the clearing erupted in fire and smoke. 40 torches blazed at once. Cadets screamed and banged their noisemakers, creating a wall of chaos that the megafauna could not ignore. The giant creatures panicked. They stopped fighting each other and ran, thundering toward the south and east, away from the flames and noise. The ground shook so hard that some cadets fell down. But they kept the fires burning, kept making noise, kept pushing the herd away. The clearing opened up. "Shuttle down now," Danny yelled into his communicator. "You have 30 seconds before they come back." The shuttle dropped like a stone, landing hard in the center of the clearing. The ramp opened before it even touched the ground. "Everyone move," Danny shouted. "Go, go, go." Cadets sprinted across the clearing. The megafauna were already turning around, confused and angry. They would return soon. Danny stood at the ramp, counting heads as cadets rushed past him. Zelther, Myra, Ren, Tick, the Corvani cadet. Dozens of others, all scrambling to safety. The last cadet boarded just as the first megafauna charged back into the clearing. The ramp closed. The shuttle lifted off. Below them, the massive creatures bellowed in frustration at the prey that had escaped. Inside the shuttle, cadets collapsed in exhaustion and relief. Some were crying. Some were laughing. Most were just staring at nothing, trying to process what they had survived. Commandant Broxus walked through the cabin, his forearms clasped behind his back. He stopped in front of Danny. "Cadet Cole, sir, you organized that extraction. You took command of 40 strangers and cleared a landing zone in hostile conditions with 0 casualties." "Yes, yes." "Sir, explain to me how a Class 3 Deathworld was handled so easily by a first-year cadet." Danny looked at the commandant. He was exhausted, dirty, and hungry. His clothes were torn, and he had cuts and bruises all over his body. But he was smiling. "Honestly, sir, Vexur 7 was pretty mild. Reminded me of summer camp back home. Earth is worse." Broxus stared at him for a long moment. Then he made a sound that might have been a laugh. "The reports did not exaggerate about your species." "Very well, Cadet Cole. Rest now. You have earned it." The commandant walked away. Danny found a seat next to Myra and closed his eyes. "Summer camp," Myra said. "You called that summer camp. I was being generous. Summer camp had mosquitoes. Those are way worse than anything on Vexur 7. Myra laughed. It was a strange, chirping sound, but it was definitely a laugh. "I will never understand humans," she said. "That is okay. We do not always understand ourselves." The shuttle broke through the atmosphere and headed for the Academy station. Behind them, Vexur 7 grew smaller and smaller until it was just another dot of light among the stars. Back at the Academy, the survival exam results were posted. Danny's group had the highest marks in Academy history. 0 casualties. Perfect teamwork. Exceptional leadership under pressure. But more interesting was the update that appeared in the Academy's species database the following week. Under the entry for humans, a new warning had been added: do not underestimate their comfort with danger. Do not mistake their casual attitude for weakness. Humans are born survivors from a world that tried to kill them every day. They adapted. They overcame. And they did it all with a smile on their face. Myra read the entry aloud to Zelthar in the cafeteria. Accurate, she said. Zelthar nodded slowly. Do you remember what you said after the hunt? About how Danny fights like he has nothing to fear. Yes, I think I finally understand. It is not that humans have nothing to fear. It is that they have feared so much for so long. That fear no longer controls them. Myra looked across the cafeteria where Danny was teaching a group of cadets how to start a fire with sticks. That, she said, is exactly why the galaxy should be afraid of them. Zelthar clicked nervously. Should we be afraid? Myra smiled. No, we should be grateful they are on our side. And somewhere in the cafeteria, Danny Cole finished his demonstration, grinned at his new students, and asked if anyone wanted to go camping next weekend. Nobody said no.